fact, I had one commenter say to me, don't think that you're a horror movie expert just because you watched Friday the 13th. You should end yourself, is exactly what. What are the 5 greatest horror movies of all time? Who are the 5 greatest horror filmmakers of all time? And what the heck is it about the genre of horror that continues to excite and enthrall some of us, and what makes it so damn good? These are just some of the topics that I discuss with the producer and screenwriter Lee Thompson. And if that is not enough horror for you, then we also discuss the master and the legend himself, Stephen King. The always interesting, creative and warm Lee Thompson never ceases to give an interesting perspective on some of these topics. And as for you, I invite you to give your perspective on the genre of horror or movies in general. Pull up a chair, join in the conversation, let me know down in the comments below what you think. On that note, welcome to Den of Horror. Now, you mentioned that you're more of a fan of psychological horror, which I am myself also. When we were busy talking about this interview, you mentioned in our emails that you weren't a horror fan as a kid. In fact, they psychologically scarred you and all of that. And yet here you are. You've come into getting your own horror short film made. You've got this very interesting concept starring a horror actress. Mm-hmm. Firstly, how do you feel about the genre of horror? Would you consider yourself a fan?
I'm very much a fan. Bizarrely, I'm not a big movie watcher. I love movies, but when I say I'm into horror, people will automatically, "Oh, did you see this one, that one?" And sometimes I haven't. I'm very specific about what I watch. I like to rely on my own imagination. Sometimes that might be a problem because it's probably been done before. And if I'd watched enough movies, I'd understand that or know that. But the way I look at it is that if I watch too much, I might be influenced by everything I watch. I'd rather be influenced by my own nightmares, I'm an only child. When I was young, I was terrified of the dark, absolutely terrified. There was a lot of factors that went into that. I actually ended up seeing a psychiatrist because I was just insane. So you wouldn't think that horror movies would be a natural fit for me. But when I got older, I kind of needed them as this catharsis they needed. I needed them to make me feel alive again. It's weird. I can't explain it. When I watch something, I feel like that makes me feel better. Horror movies did that for me. When I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, oh wow, I was absolutely terrified. Absolutely. When he runs down the street and he's got his arm stretched out, a lot of people find that funny. That to me was the scariest bit of the movie, was his arm stretched out across the road. It really gave me nightmares, and it affected. I shouldn't like horror movies. I know so many people who hate horror movies. I should be one of them, but I don't know why. I just went totally the other way and just couldn't get enough of it. But I'm constantly thinking of ways that I could do it that aren't contrived, that haven't been done before. That's so hard. People think that making a horror movie must be the easiest thing to do because just scare people, but it's been done.
You're talking about horror and the role that it's played in your life. I mean, I love that you said that it was actually cathartic for you, that there was some kind of a release in watching them. Do you think that this is part of the horror genre's role, whether it be in a movie or a book? Do you think that that's the role that it plays in society? Do you think that's what attracts people to horror movies?
Yeah, it's first and foremost, it's escapism, isn't it? It's purely that, and it's kind of like it allows you to be scared in a safe environment. I think that's kind of important as well. It is cathartic because you're around people who are keeping you safe while you're watching it. It's not this nightmare that you wake up on your own. So that's important, and it comments on societal issues. It's kind of like the genre that it encapsulates everything about the human condition. It's not just this. A horror can be everything from tragedy to comedy to everything. It's got every element. So that's for me why it's the most important genre. It's it's a true reflection of society. I often say that people are actually scarier than monsters.
Who would you say are the 5 top horror filmmakers of all time?
A lot of them would have come before my time, for sure. And everyone looks to them as an influence. You've got your obvious ones like, Alfred Hitchcock. He's just incredible. He set the tone for everything that was to come. Then you got your John Carpenters and your Wes Cravens. Wes Craven I was a big fan of his because of all the stuff that he came with. It was a bit cheesy, but it was great. I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit of a nerd. I loved it. George Romero, he's amazing. And I have to give a special mention, because I'm working with Sylvia. You have the Italian horror movies that I've got to be honest, I wasn't aware how big of a role Italian horror had in the 80s and how I was so respected and looked to as an influence, And so it's only recently that I've been looking into it and thinking, this is insane. But there's a guy called Dario Argento, who was at the top of his game when it came to Italian horror films, and a lot of people look to him. So you say the 5 people. So I've got a list here in front of me, because I would never remember this because I've got a soggy brain. So yeah, Alfred Hitchcock, John Carpenter, Wes Craven, George Romero, Dario Argento. Those are the ones I chose.
Great list. I mean, that there's something there for all horror fans, from your popcorn horror fans right down to your cult horror fans, the Giallo fans and stuff like Dario Argento.
Giallo. Wow, it's something I really got to get stuck into.
Yeah. What do you think of Mario Bava? I
don't know who that is. Awful, isn't it? Well, there you go. There's a shining example. I think someone said to me, "You've got to bone up." Not for this specifically. He said, but one day, when you're this kind of top screenwriter and you've made loads of films, people are going to nail you down and ask you questions, and you better know the answer, because you don't look like a dick.
So, I was going to say that we could cut that out of the interview, but we'll keep it in, because it's such an honest answer,
Seriously though, I've got a lot to learn, and I prefer it that way. I prefer it when I'm led in a direction that is so exciting that I never knew about, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know everything about horror. That would be a total lie. I love horror, but I've got so much to learn. And I think I'm in such a privileged position now, being able to still learn and whilst making my own. I mean, wow, how exciting. And I'm 50. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm doing this hopefully halfway through my life. But yeah, it's insane. I feel like the luckiest guy on the planet at the moment. Right. That's honestly how I feel. So, I mean, you could school me on so much horror stuff. I probably know about 1% of what you know.
No, Lee. Well, to be honest with you, I did this channel simply because I love horror movies, but I'm much like you in the sense that, in fact, it's been a lot of commenters that have actually gotten me onto thinking about horror in a different way and seeing how level this genre actually is. In fact, I had one commenter say to me, "Don't think that you're a horror movie expert just because you watched Friday the 13th. You should end yourself," is exactly what
Whoa,
that's what someone said to me, and I was like, dude, come on. Rather help me, why do you have to but that's pretty horror, I would say. Now,
I would say, sorry to interrupt. I used to do tour photography with metal bands and that kind of stuff. And I see a lot of similarity between the metal music crowd and the horror movie crowd. And they like what they like. And I suppose you could call it quite niche in a way. But some people really take offense if you kind of diss what they like. So you've got to respect that angle as well, for sure. I think I learned that from music, actually, bizarrely, because, someone will oh, that's not real music. And you think, dude, we could all just get along. It's fine. You like what you like. I like what I like. It's all good. Don't worry. Let's just have a beer. It's fine. So I brought a lot of that into what I'm doing now,
Yeah, no, awesome. Stephen King fan in any way?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I am actually. I like him as a human being as well.
Yeah.
I just think I think I'm not I'm not going to say we're similar. I don't think he's much of a planner, which is what I like about him. He kind of goes with the flow. I think some people don't like this. He doesn't like to have an ending. Some people like to start with the ending and then work towards it. He never does that, apparently. Apparently, he just goes where the characters lead him. And I quite like that. You know, he said it might turn out that it's rubbish in the end because they led him in the wrong direction. But he had a lot of fun getting there. And to me, that's such a great philosophy. It's all about the fun. And at the end of the day, you are doing it for yourself. Yes, of course, it's a medium that requires an audience. But if you're not having fun doing it, it's a job.
If Stephen King got hold of you and said, listen, I like what you're doing. I want you to get involved in getting one of my books made, one of my stories made. Is there any particular one that you would have a preference for?
Do you know, if it hadn't been done, I totally would have gone for Misery. That was my favorite of his.
As a fan, there are movies that have been adapted that I really enjoyed. But you know, a lot of Stephen King's movies, or at least the books that get adapted into movies, haven't quite worked. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that a lot of adaptation doesn't really translate into the medium of film?
I think with him, because he's so prolific and he's got so many films that have been adapted, it comes down to who's taking control of the script. I think I read a quote or something that someone said about Stephen King movies. They said that basically what people get wrong is that they think Stephen King's movies are about monsters, but they're not. They're about the way that people deal with the monsters. You know, how the common man will deal with the monster in the story. The story is about the people, not the monster in the story, you know. And that's really great. You know, if you've got a producer who doesn't see it that way and they just want thrills and spills, then they're missing the point of a Stephen King book. Yeah, if anything, he should have probably been a bit more discerning on who he gave his scripts to produce. Maybe that was a problem. I don't know.
I read somewhere, and I don't know, I'm probably going to get this all wrong, but that he has a $1 rule, that if you pay $1, you can take his story.
Yeah,
and
I heard that as well.
Yeah.
Wow, how cool is that?
Well, Lee, maybe your next project, you know, you've got $1 to spare. If you had to choose 5 of the greatest horror movies of all time, what are the 5 Lee Thompson picks?
I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I really did. That was one of the big ones for me. The Exorcist was, wow. That was where it all started for me, or where it all went wrong. That was the start of my journey into, wow, I'd say almost like insanity. I watched it far too young. Everyone says that, but I really did, and it really affected me, and I did have to go and see a psychiatrist because it had such an effect on me. Then there's a film called The Entity. I don't know if have you ever seen The Entity?
Brilliant movie, brilliant.
Wow, man, the soundtrack on that is insane. Unfortunately, the rape scenes when the ghost is doing his thing, that it's like almost like Jaws music. It is so powerful, and it hits you right here. And I saw that when I was young, I was like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. And then it's based on a true story. Ooh-wee. That was me. I was off. This could actually happen. You're mad.
Martin Scorsese actually called The Entity the scariest movie that he's ever seen. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great. I've got even more respect for him now. Alien, right up top there for me. You know, that is a proper horror movie. You know, it might be sci-fi, but wow. Dog Soldiers.
You've got to have a werewolf movie in there somewhere.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was so good because it struck the right balance between scary and funny. The dialogue was just so damn good.
So your 5 top favorite horror movies of all time: Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, The Entity, Alien, and Dog Soldiers. Okay.
Oh, there are definitely a few more for sure. I like Pet Sematary, for example. That's also up there for me. I mean, I honestly, narrowing it down to 5 is
tough.
It's tough. And like I say, I haven't watched an extraordinary amount of movies, but I'm very definite about the ones I really enjoyed.
Well, if you enjoy psychological horror movies, one that I could recommend would be Let's Scare Jessica to Death. It's a 1971 horror movie by John D. Hancock. It sounds like almost like a comedy horror or anything, but it's actually this deeply disturbing psychological horror movie.
Oh,
I think
cool.
1971. Very good movie. You got to check it out.
Definitely watch that. Thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's another one I just thought of called Hush, a recent one, about a deaf woman who's living in the woods, or having a holiday in the woods, and there's an intruder trying to get in, but she doesn't know that he's there. And this kind of interplay between us knowing that he's there and her not knowing that it's so well done. So well done. And it's terrifying because you can feel it. Your heart beats while you're watching, you think, I knew it's that kind of thing, you know?
Right.
It really works.
I think, and I hope I'm not going to get this wrong, but I think that's a Mike Flanagan movie.
Yeah.
And
it's his wife.
That's his wife, Russ. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's brilliant. I mean, he's one of the top sort of newer horror movie directors that I rate.
Absolutely. He's at the top of his game. Everything's about Mark Flanagan at the moment. His new series, was not so new now, Midnight Mass, is one of my favorite TV series of all time.
Yeah, Midnight Mass was very good.
Midnight Mass was insanely good. I loved it. Obviously, The Haunting of Hill House, and the second one as well. And he's just doing great stuff. I think he's going to be. Is he doing a Stephen King adaptation as well? Soon as well? Isn't he doing?
He did Doctor Sleep, which was the sequel to The Shining.
Yeah, but he's in talks to do. What's the gunslinger? What was the
Dark Tower?
Dark Tower. Yeah, he's in talks to do that.
Really, that would be interesting.
Yeah, he wants to take it on. I think.
Yeah. I know he's doing. I know he's just wrapped on a. I think it's an adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story called. Is it the Fall of the House of Usher?
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which is also like a big ensemble again. So yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Just sort of getting to the end of our official end of our little chat here.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a love for some of these older horror movies like The Entity and The Exorcist. Okay, and also some of the newer ones like Dog Soldiers, I suppose relatively new. But there's amongst horror fans quite a big debate as to how the newer horror movies compared to the older ones, let's say from the 80s and before that. Yeah. I'm someone who believes horror has never been better. If you look at The Witch, Hereditary, the Mike Flanagans of the world, it follows Midsommar, Ari Aster. I mean, and also Ty West with X and Pearl and those movies.
Yeah, I love those.
Awesome movies. Where do you stand on that debate? Where do you think that horror has seen its day, or do you think that it's only getting stronger?
Horror's getting stronger, 100%. Horror's on the, you'll say things like horror's on the up again, and you'll get people saying it's never gone down. It's always been up there. But I kind of disagree. I think it is definitely on the up again. When you get horror movies making the kind of money like they're making now, that's insane. They hardly ever made that kind of money. I mean, I know it's a handful, but there's a kind of a momentum building up now. With regards to new and older, I think everything has its place, I don't like to say it's better now. Maybe the production values are better, the performances are probably better, because you look at the older stuff, your performances were, I don't know, some of them were quite cheesy, weren't they? But still enjoyable. But you had to have a start somewhere. But at the end of the day, for me, a good movie is a good movie. It's all about how they make you feel. So, I'm not going to knock a 70s movie because some of the performances were a bit wooden. If the overall story was great and it affected me, then it's still a great movie in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, what they've got available to them now to make a great horror movie is vastly different to then. So obviously now it's going to be, they can employ techniques they would have only dreamed of then. Like I watched Evil Dead 2013 the other day. I haven't seen the new one yet, the Evil Dead Rise. Can't wait to see it. But I was blown away how great it was. I couldn't believe. I watched the first Evil Dead. I haven't watched the second one yet. And it was a good movie. It was a little bit cheesy, a little bit funny. I mean, the effects were quite frankly pretty good for the time, but it was of its time, But then you watch that, and then you watch Evil Dead 2013. Different kettle of fish, maybe the same universe, but when it comes to how it was made and the darker element, to me, there was no humor in it. I quite like it when there's no humor. I quite like when a horror movie is played straight and the humor comes just from a circumstance where it wasn't really meant to be funny, but you did find it quite funny. You know, if you're playing it for laughs, it kind of loses its edge. So I loved it because it was so intense, so serious, and so well done. In fact, it's now joined my other horror movies as one of the best I've seen. Evil Dead 2013, for sure.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining Lee and myself, but that's not quite it from the great Mr. Lee Thompson. Next time I'm going to hit him with some quick fire questions, which are always fun, and he is going to let us in on a little secret, the mysterious project that he is involved with at the moment. And by the way, if you like these interviews, then be sure to go and check out my interview with the legendary makeup and prosthetics designer Sarah Rabano, who worked on the wonderful X, Pearl, and the upcoming Maxine, as well as Avatar: The Way of Water. And I have just finished an interview with another incredible and legendary makeup designer, Ed French, who you'll probably know from Terminator 2, the horror cult classic Sleepaway Camp, as well as Blood Rage. And let me tell you, if you don't know who Ed French is, I'll tell you right now, this is one interesting dude. It was such a privilege to sit down and speak with him. So, a lot of cool stuff coming up your way. So hit that subscribe button, get down in the comments below, let me know what you guys think. And on that note, stay safe, stay happy, and as always, stay horror.
Gaze into the abyss.